Summary of They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. Mateo, who is 18 years old, is browsing through a site called Countdowners at 12:22 in the morning when he receives a call from Deathcast, a company that provides individuals with a warning of death that is 24 hours in advance. The person calling him, Andrea, gets him mixed up with the last Decker she called, so Mateo hangs up. He starts to freak out because he is easily stressed and doesn't have many friends. He also misses the Mateo of the future. Tomorrow, Mateo would go live his life. He promises to leave his apartment and see his dad in the hospital, his best friend Lydia, and Lydia's daughter Penny before he dies. After 30 minutes, Rufus, 17, is beating up Peck for taking his woman when he gets a call from Deathcast telling him he's going to die today. Vic, Rufus's messenger, is nice, but that doesn't help because Rufus doesn't want to beat someone as his last act. For the funeral, he goes back to his foster home with Malcolm and Tego, who are his best friends and foster siblings. On the way home, Rufus calls Amy, his ex-girlfriend and former foster sister. She agrees to go to the foster home with Peck to meet the boys. At first, Rufus's funeral is sad and full of tears, but then the cops show up. Peck called them. Malcolm and Tego keep the cops away while Rufus sneaks out the back and rides his bike away. Mateo thinks that he lived for everyone should be written on his tombstone. He then gets the Last Friend app, which helps Deckers find friends on their end day, the day they die. He needs someone to help him get through the day because he doesn't want to tell Lydia he's dying. He put a picture of himself wearing a Luigi hat as his personal picture because he wants to be the type of person who sings in public and wears silly hats. The first few people he talks to are mean or rude. Rufus, meanwhile, sits down next to some writing that says Last Friend. He thinks that since he doesn't have any friends, he should make a new one. He and Mateo link right away and start video chatting. Rufus agrees to pick Mateo up from his place. Both boys are scared. Takes a picture of himself and his dad when he was a child, leaves notes for the neighbors, and then follows Rufus out of the building. Mateo wants them to bury the dead bird that's in the street. Rufus, who is busy on Instagram, takes a picture of Mateo burying the bird. He goes with Mateo to the subway because he thinks Mateo is too good. Mateo gets into a different car and tells them they have no right to party while Rufus gets into the car where people are partying. At the hospital, they get off. Mateo already feels bad that he hasn't come out more. Dad was in Mateo's room the day his mom died while giving birth to him, so Mateo is mad at Dad. Dad should be awake now. He first tells Elizabeth, Dad's nurse, that his parents are getting married. Then he tries to keep a secret from Dad. He doesn't say it out loud, but he gives Dad a picture of them and a note telling him that he was brave. The man is led out of the hospital by Rufus. Next to them is a man who is poor. Mateo insists that they give the man money even though they won't need it after today. Around the same time, a young reporter named Delilah tells herself that Victor, who works for Deathcast and is her ex-boyfriend, is just playing with her and that she's not going to die. She finds out that movie star Howie Maldonado is going to die today and promises to write about it. They decide to have breakfast at Rufus's favorite cafe since it's too early to go see Lydia. When Ray finds out that Rufus and Mateo are Deckers, she is shocked and tries to give them free food, but Mateo refuses to pay. He and Rufus talk about what they wanted to be when they grew up. Rufus draws a world because he wanted to see the world and take pictures. Mateo doesn't want to ride on the back of Rufus's bike to Lydia's after dinner, so they walk to her apartment. He tells Lydia that he doesn't want to tell her he's dying because Christian, her boyfriend, died before Penny was born. Mateo does not want to hurt Lydia even more because she was asleep when Christian tried to reach her. Mateo goes upstairs to help Lydia clean up and feed Penny, while Rufus stays downstairs. Lydia is told she is wonderful, and Mateo leaves a note with cash inside it and sneaks out of the room. He stops Lydia from calling. Outside, Rufus tells Mateo that the fact that he gets to say goodbye should make him feel better. Rufus's friends will have something to remember him by if he posts bright pictures from his last day on Instagram, according to Mateo. Mateo learns that Malcolm and Tego are in jail from Rufus's call to Amy. Rufus follows Mateo after he runs away because he is scared of him. Rufus hangs up on Amy because she won't break up with Peck. While they are in Central Park, Rufus agrees to tell Mateo everything. It's been 5 months since he was in a car accident that killed his parents and his bigger sister Olivia. He says that he has been in foster care. Last night, he beat up Peck because he thought he would never amount to anything. He asks Rufus to join him at a make-a-moment station because he knows Rufus is not a monster. They check in with a woman called Deirdre who is not funny, and she sets them up to do virtual flying. Each person has to pay $240 for the event. The boys all agree that it was strange. And Rufus takes Mateo to a graveyard with payphones. There, they talk about Indiana Jones and how Mateo gave his shoes to a kid who didn't have any a year ago. The storyteller talks about a boy named Kendrick. He's not dying today, but some kids jumped him and stole his shoes a year ago. Mateo, a stranger, gave Kendrick his shoes, but now he only wants to punch people. Delilah asks Sandy, her boss, to let her talk to Howie. Sandy doesn't really want Delilah to come, but she does. Sandy then tells Delilah to get Howie's first book. At the same time, Mateo asks if they can go see his mom's grave. Before they get on the subway, Rufus buys Mateo some Legos. When the train loses power for a short time, Mateo uses the Legos to make a safe place to be. He falls asleep while Rufus watches over him and takes a picture of him sleeping. The boys talk about what they think the future is like as they walk through the graveyard. When Mateo gets close to his mom's grave, he stops dead because someone is digging his own grave next to it. The man is told to leave by Rufus. Mateo sits with his mom and thinks about the day he was born. He then sits with Rufus in his unfinished grave. The boys learn that they both have strong memories of Althea Park as they talk. Next, Mateo takes Rufus to a pier so that Rufus can finally come to terms with the deaths of his parents. It's amazing that this works. When Mateo and Rufus go to a shop, Mateo buys some letters and a mystery book that is wrapped in paper. Someone named Vin sets off a suicide bomb outside, which hurts Rufus, Mateo, and Delilah and kills other Deckers. The boy Rufus makes up his mind to ride his bike, and Mateo finally agrees to sit on the back. Rufus accidentally rides his bike past the apartment building where Deirdre, the woman from Make a Moment, is standing. She was ready to kill herself because her job makes her feel like life has no point. But seeing Rufus and Mateo below makes her change her mind. Mateo is so happy that he took a chance that he jumps off the bike when the boys get to Althea Park. After seeing so many people die from the bomb, they are both even more scared of death. They have fun on the monkey bars, and then Rufus gives his broken down bike to a different guy. He won't need it anyway. Peck calls his friend Damien at the same time. They plan to kill Rufus to get the gang back together and get even with Peck. Peck pulls out his gun and looks at Rufus's Instagram while he waits for Rufus to tell him where he is. Mateo and Rufus choose to take the train. They make up stories about other people on the train as a game, and then they act like they're living out their future together. In their made-up story, Rufus works in a building that Mateo built, and the two of them have tattoos of each other. The boys get off the train, and Mateo leaves his covered book for someone else. The book is found by two girls. One is a Decker named Zoe, and the other is Gabriella, who writes on walls around the city for Last Friend, which is what made Rufus download the app. Mateo calls Lydia and asks her to come with them to the travel arena. Lydia shows up soon after. Mateo and Rufus can get in for free, but her ticket costs $100. The trip takes 80 minutes and goes around the world. Rufus makes them get off the train in a fake Puerto Rico. They follow him to a ride called the Rainforest Jump, where Mateo talks Rufus and Lydia into jumping off a 20-foot cliff with him. Rudy feels like he's been bathed and all of his anger is at the bottom of the pool. As they swim to the top, he and Mateo hold hands, and Rufus tells them they have to go to a club for deckers. Officer Andrade, on the other hand, lets Malcolm and Tego out of jail because he knows what it's like to lose a loved one. Lupe and Malcolm call Rufus and agree to meet at Clint's graveyard, which is the Decker Club. When Rufus posts a picture of the sign on Instagram, Peck and his friends go there to get back at Rufus. Mateo feels like he should have spent more time in the club. He and Rufus sing American Pie at karaoke, and then Mateo gives Rufus a kiss because he feels like Rufus brought him back to life. After that, Malcolm, Tego, and Amy show up. While this is going on, Sandy and Delilah are interviewing Howie in a car. Howie is actually on his way to see his first love. He feels bad about many things he did in his life. Delilah takes over because Sandy's questions are dull. Howie honestly says that he wishes he had spent more time with his family. He knows that even though all of his online friends keep him company, he still wants to be close to them. He dies when the car hits a wall while trying to dodge Peck, Damien, and Kendrick. Sandy and Delilah make it through. Rufus gives his friends hugs and tells Mateo and Lydia about them. After that, everyone starts dancing. They slow dance and talk about all the things they'll never get to do. Mateo goes up to Lydia and says he's sorry he didn't tell her sooner. When she asks him what she's going to do without him, he can't tell her. When Mateo sees that Peck and his group have come with a gun, he turns his attention back to Rufus. Marcus can body slam the rest of the gang after Mateo hits Peck with a punch. He grabs the gun, fires it into the wall, and then he and Mateo run away. They don't know it, but they run into Dalma Young, who made the Last Friend app. Dalma doesn't like how some people abuse the app, but she thinks Last Friend is great. Mateo asks Rufus if they can go to his place and then see Dad one last time. Rufus says yes. Rufus takes pictures of Mateo jumping on his bed in his room. Mateo then sits down and sings and plays Your Song by Elton John for Rufus. A movie is made by Rufus. They eat, sleep, and tell each other they love them. If they say they won't get out of bed, Mateo will get up in an hour to make tea. The broken stove sets him on fire and kills him. Rufus is sad and angry at the same time. He takes Mateo's body to the hospital on a ride and then goes to see his dad. Mateo asks Lydia to tell his dad that he is gay if Rufus can't. Lydia tells him that she will do it if Rufus can't. Rufus can then write Dad a note to introduce himself and tell him that Mateo was brave on his end day. He also gives you his Instagram name. In the end, Rufus goes to Althea Park. Delilah is writing Howie's obituary at a diner by Althea Park when she gets the idea to call Victor to find out for sure if her call was a joke. No, it's not. Vic gets in his car and drives quickly to Delilah. After repeatedly watching the video of Mateo singing to him, Rufus walks across the street without turning around.
About the author. Silvera was born in New York's South Bronx. His family was very poor when he was a child. Silvera wrote a lot of fan fiction when he was a teenager because he loved Harry Potter. This is how he got started writing. He thought as a child, though, that he wanted to be a social worker like his mom. It wasn't until Silvera was 21 that he felt okay telling people he wasn't straight. He usually calls himself gay, but sometimes he calls himself bisexual. More happy than not, Silvera's first book came out in 2015. His agent is the same as Becky Albertalli's, and both of their first books sold in the same week. This made the two authors become close friends, and in the end, they wrote the book What If It's Us Together. A lot of Silvera's books, like They Both Die at the End, were affected by his battles with depression, OCD, and suicide ideas. He lives in Los Angeles.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.